Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. I needed the job. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I stepped into the town library. The unemployment checks weren't enough anymore, and rent wasn't going to pay itself. After getting laid off from my office job last month, I'd been applying everywhere. So when the temp agency called about a position at the library, I didn't even ask for details. The building sat at the edge of downtown, all red brick and tall windows. It wasn't much to look at, but at least it wasn't retail. I'd dealt with enough angry customers at my last job to last a lifetime. Mr. Owens met me at the front desk right on time. He looked permanently exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. His sweater vest was wrinkled, his glasses smudged, and he had the kind of expression that said he'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah Mitchell. He didn't wait for me to nod. Follow me. The library was bigger than it looked from outside. We passed through endless rows of shelves, our footsteps echoing in the morning quiet. A few patrons were already at the study tables. Owens led me to a small office in the back, where an old desk was buried under stacks of paper. In the corner, an ancient computer hummed softly. He rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a ring of keys and a single sheet of paper. "These are your rules," he said, sliding the paper across the desk. "Follow them exactly." I expected the usual new hire guidelines, dress code, emergency procedures, break room locations. Instead, I found only 3 rules, typed in old courier font. 1. If a patron asks for a book that doesn't exist, tell them it's unavailable. 2. Never open the locked door in the basement. 3. If you find a book with no title, return it to the shelf in the East Wing immediately. "That's it?" I asked. "No other procedures?" "That's all you need to know." He stood up. "I'll show you the computer system." For the next hour, he walked me through the basics. The computer looked ancient, but the catalog system was simple. Check books in, check books out, process returns. Nothing complicated. "What about the basement?" I asked, recalling Rule 2. "Storage," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Just stay away from the locked door." "Right," I pocketed the rules. "And the East Wing?" "Reference section. Mostly old books no one uses anymore." He hesitated. "If you find any books without titles, they go there. No exceptions." The morning passed uneventfully. I shadowed Owens, learning the layout. Fiction up front, nonfiction in the back, children's books in a brightly colored corner, and reference materials in the East Wing. Simple enough. Then, around noon, a man walked in. He looked normal. Suit, briefcase, probably worked in one of the downtown offices, but something about him felt off. "Do you have the hollow ones?" he asked, avoiding my eyes. I checked the system, though I already knew the answer. "Nothing." "Sorry, that one's unavailable," I said, following rule number 1. His reaction surprised me. Relief washed over his face, his shoulders sagging like a weight had been lifted. Without another word, he turned and walked out. "What was that about?" I asked Owens later. "You followed the rules," he said without looking up from his cart of books. "That's what matters." The afternoon dragged. I processed returns, helped students with research, and tried to memorize where everything was. Around 3, an elderly woman needed help finding a cookbook. As I led her to the right section, she suddenly grabbed my arm. "You're new," she said. It wasn't a question. "First day." She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Did they give you the rules?" Before I could answer, she spotted the cookbook she wanted and hurried off, leaving me with more questions than answers. I was sorting returns when I found it, a book with no title, no author, no markings, just plain black binding. I turned it over in my hands, but every surface was blank. Following Rule 3, I carried it to the East Wing. Rows of reference books stretched toward the back wall, their spines faded with age. Finding an empty spot between two encyclopedias, I slid the blank book into place. "Good," Owen said from behind me, making me jump. I hadn't heard him approach. "You're learning." The rest of the day passed without incident, just the usual stream of people checking out books or using the computers. I was starting to think maybe this job wouldn't be so bad. Easy work, decent pay. Sure, the rules were weird, but every job had its quirks. At closing time, I did my final walkthrough. Everything looked normal until I got back to the front desk. There, sitting in the exact center, was another titleless book. I stood there for a moment, staring at it. I knew, absolutely knew, it hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. I had just cleared the entire desk during my check. The rules didn't say anything about where these books came from or why they had no titles, just to take them to the East Wing. Simple enough. I grabbed the book and walked it back. The library was empty now, the building silent. I found another open spot between the reference books and slid it in. Back at the front desk, I glanced at the rules taped inside my drawer. They seemed simple, maybe even stupid. But Owen's insistence on following them, the man's reaction to the missing book, the old woman's question, something wasn't adding up. I gathered my things and locked up for the night. The parking lot was empty except for my car and Owen's old Volvo. As I walked to my car, I glanced back at the library. The building was dark. At home, I tried Googling the library. The website was basic: hours, location, catalog search. Nothing about any special rules or procedures. I searched for the hollow ones but found nothing. No book by that title seemed to exist. I thought about Monsieur Turner, the librarian I was replacing. Owens hadn't mentioned her once during training. When I'd asked about my predecessor during the interview, he had changed the subject. My phone buzzed, a text from the temp agency confirming my placement. "Congratulations on your first day. Contract length: indefinite. Indefinite. Great." At least the job was secure. I pulled out the rules and read them again. 1. If a patron asks for a book that doesn't exist, tell them it's unavailable. 2. Never open the locked door in the basement. 3. If you find a book with no title, return it to the shelf in the East Wing immediately. Just 3 rules to follow. How hard could that be? I set my alarm for tomorrow and tried not to think about those blank books, or that man's relieved face, or the locked door in the basement. Whatever was going on at the library, I'd figure it out eventually. For now, I just needed the job. The questions started during my second week. Little things at first. Where did the previous librarian go? Why did Owens never talk about her? I'd asked about M. Turner during my interview, but he had switched topics faster than someone dodging a debt collector. "Hey," I caught him between shelving books. "What happened to the person I replaced?" Owens didn't look up from his cart. "We don't discuss previous employees." "Right. But she worked here for, 5 years? Someone must know. There are books that need shelving in the children's section." He walked away, leaving his cart behind. The morning dragged until a man in a suit walked in, heading straight for my desk. Something about his posture reminded me of the guy from last week, the one who had asked about the hollow ones. "Do you have the hollow ones?" I stared at him. Same book, different person. The computer search came up empty, just like before. "It's unavailable," I said. He turned to leave, then stopped. "Someone else asked for it yesterday, didn't they?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone about the first guy. "Sorry, I can't discuss other patrons' requests." He looked at me, really looked at me, like he was trying to decide something. Then, without another word, he walked out. That afternoon, I found another titleless book, this time on the return cart. Black binding, blank pages, just like the others. I took it to the East Wing and found a spot between the encyclopedias. Owens was waiting by my desk when I got back. The rules are simple, he said. Follow them. I did. I took it straight to, don't discuss the books. Just follow the rules. That night, I tried looking up Miss Turner online. The library's website had no staff section, no employment history, nothing. The local paper's archive showed a few community events she had organized, but those stopped abruptly 6 months ago. No explanation, no farewell article, just nothing. I was about to close my laptop when an email notification popped up. The temp agency. Just checking in, the email chirped. The library has requested to extend your contract. Please reply to confirm you're satisfied with your position. Satisfied wasn't the word I'd use. Confused, maybe. Unsettled, definitely. But the pay was good, and jobs weren't exactly growing on trees. I clicked reply and started typing, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Silence. Then a woman's voice, soft but urgent. Are you the new librarian? Who is this? Listen carefully. Don't ask questions. Just follow the rules. Is this about M. Turner? Click. The next day, a regular patron, an older woman always checking out mystery novels, cornered me in the biography section. You're still here, she said. Not a question. Going on 2 weeks now. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. Stop asking about her. It's better that way. About who? You know who. She grabbed a random book and hurried away. I found 3 more titleless books that week. One on a study table, one in the returns bin, one just sitting on the floor in the fiction section. Each time I took them straight to the East Wing. Each time, Owens watched me do it. Friday morning, another man came in asking for the hollow ones. It's unavailable, I said automatically. Someone else asked for it this week, didn't they? I remembered the rules. I can't discuss. They did. I can tell. He leaned forward. How many have asked? I kept my voice steady. Sir, I can help you find a different book. How many? His knuckles were white against the desk. I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. He straightened, smoothing his jacket. You don't understand what you're doing here. None of you ever do. Sir, just keep following your precious rules. See where that gets you. He walked out, leaving behind a business card. The name was blank. That night I stayed late to finish reshelving. The rules didn't say anything about working after hours, just about that locked door in the basement. I was putting away the last few books when the lights flickered. Hello? My voice echoed in the empty building. No answer. I headed for the front desk, ready to clock out, when I saw it. Another titleless book, right in the center of my desk. I hadn't heard anyone come in. The security cameras hadn't shown any movement. Rules are rules. I picked up the book and walked to the East Wing one last time. The shelves loomed in the dim light as I found an empty spot and slid the book into place. Something shifted behind me. I turned. The older woman from earlier stood at the end of the aisle. You should have gone home, she said. The library's closed. Don't ask questions. She cut me off. Just follow the rules. Please. She walked away before I could respond. I grabbed my things and left, making sure all 3 locks were secure. In my rearview mirror, the library was just a dark shape against the sky. The next morning, Owens didn't show up. I waited outside until another employee arrived to unlock the doors. Inside, his office was locked. His car was still in the parking lot. I called the town office. Hi, I'm trying to reach Mr. Owens at the library. I'm sorry, the clerk interrupted. We don't have anyone by that name employed here. He's the head librarian. He's worked here for years. Our records show no such employee. Would you like me to transfer you to HR? I hung up. The titleless book was waiting on my desk when I sat down. Black binding, blank pages, just like all the others. I took it to the East Wing, found an empty spot, and slid it into place. The rules were simple. Just 3 things to remember. How hard could that be? I arrived early, hoping to catch Owens before opening. His car sat in its usual spot, collecting morning dew, the same place it had been for 3 days. The library keys felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked the front door. The building was silent, empty. I walked straight to Owens's office, still locked. His coffee mug sat on the desk inside, visible through the window, half full like he'd stepped out mid-sip and never returned. I called the police first. They took a report, but their eyes glazed over when I mentioned the library. "We'll look into it," the officer said, not writing anything down. Next was the town hall. I'd tried them twice already, but maybe someone different was working today. "I'm calling about Mr. Owens, the head librarian." "Ma'am, as we've told you, we have no record of that employee. He's worked here for years. He hired me himself. Our records show all library staffing. There is no Owens employed here." "Then who hired me?" A pause. Who is this calling?" I hung up. Back at my desk, I pulled out the personnel files. There had to be something. Payroll records, tax forms, anything. But every folder was empty. Just blank paper where documents should be. The man showed up around noon, tall, wearing a dark suit that hung wrong on his frame. He walked straight past my desk and stood between the shelves in the fiction section. For 2 hours. He didn't move. Didn't browse. Just stood there. Other patrons walked around him like he wasn't there. A student nearly bumped into him, then veered away at the last second without looking up. I watched him on the security cameras. He never shifted position, never checked his phone, never even seemed to breathe. At 2:15, I got up to ask if he needed help. Library policy required me to check on patrons who stayed in one place too long. As I approached, he turned, a single fluid motion, and walked out. I followed him to the door, but the parking lot was empty. That afternoon, I found another titleless book. It sat in the exact spot where I'd found the first one weeks ago. Same black binding, same blank pages. I took it to the East Wing, trying not to think about Owens, or the man who stood like a statue, or the way the town had erased my boss from existence. The rules were simple. That's what Owens had said. Just follow them exactly. But Owens was gone. That evening, I started searching his office. The window lock was old, easy to jimmy open with a credit card. Inside, everything looked normal. Papers stacked neatly. Computer humming on standby. That half-full coffee mug leaving a ring on his desk. His desk drawers were locked. But I had keys to everything. Or I thought I did. None of them worked. I was about to give up when I noticed the bottom drawer wasn't fully closed. Something was catching it inside. Buried under old manuals, I found a single key. Small, brass, with a paper tag. Do not use. I knew what door it was for before I even checked the shape. The basement door. Rule number 2. Never open the locked door in the basement. I sat there, holding the key, thinking about Owens, about M. Turner, about the way people disappeared here and the town just forgot them. A sound from upstairs made me freeze. Footsteps. The library had closed an hour ago. I slipped the key into my pocket and crept up the stairs. The main floor was dark. I'd turned off the lights myself at closing, but someone was walking between the shelves. I reached for my phone to call security, then stopped. Who would I even call? The police, who didn't write anything down. The town hall, that denied Owens existed. The footsteps stopped. Hello? My voice sounded wrong in the empty building. Nothing. I walked through the fiction section, checking each aisle. Empty. The children's section. Empty. The East Wing. A titleless book sat on the floor at the end of the reference aisle. I picked it up. The cover was warm, like someone had just been holding it. Following the rules, I found a spot on the shelf and slid it in place. When I turned around, a man stood at the end of the aisle, not the statue man from earlier. This one was older, wearing a tweed jacket that had seen better days. He stared at the spot where I'd shelved the book. "Sir, the library's closed." He walked away, just turned and walked. disappearing around the corner. I followed, but the aisle was empty. All the aisles were deserted. Back at the office, I tried calling the temp agency, but the number was disconnected. I searched for Miss Turner again. This time, even the old newspaper articles were gone, as if she'd never existed, as if Owens had never existed. The key felt heavier in my pocket. The basement door loomed ahead, solid metal secured with a heavy padlock. The key would fit. I could open it right now, see what they were hiding. But the rules. I thought about the man standing like a statue, the woman who had warned me not to ask questions, the way people disappeared in this place. The key stayed in my pocket. Instead, I went through Owens's desk once more. There had to be something, some proof, some record that he was real. At the back of the bottom drawer, behind where I'd found the key, I spotted a thin folder. The tab read, Ms. Turner. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the same rules I'd been given, typed in that familiar courier font. Below them, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "He's gone. I don't think I'll last much longer." The next morning, another Titleist book sat on my desk, just like the first one had appeared weeks ago. I carried it to the east wing, found an empty spot, and slid it into place. The rules were simple, but Owens was gone. M. Turner was gone. And I had a key in my pocket that might tell me why. As I stood in front of the basement door, the key felt wrong in my grip. Breaking rules wasn't my thing. I needed this job too much. But Owens's coffee still sat on his desk, cold, like he'd only stepped away for a moment. I turned the key in the padlock. It clicked open. The basement stairs groaned under my weight. Emergency lights cast a dim glow, just enough to see. I expected something worse. Horror movie stuff, maybe. But it was just a storage room. Metal shelves lined the walls, boxes stacked neatly on every level. In the corner, a desk sat covered in dust, except for one clear spot. Miss Turner's nameplate rested there. I pulled open the top drawer, empty. The second, nothing. The third stuck halfway, something wedged inside. I yanked harder, and a folder tumbled out, landing face up. Employee records, Turner, L. Inside was a copy of the rules. Same courier font, same instructions. A thick stack of incident reports filled the rest of the folder. Each one documented someone asking about the hollow ones. The last report was dated 6 months ago. Third request this week. Following protocol as instructed. Beneath the reports, a logbook. The first few pages were filled with Miss Turner's neat, precise handwriting. Then, the script changed, messier, rushed. Owens is gone. I don't think I'll last much longer. That was her final entry. I moved deeper into the storage room. More shelves, more boxes. Then something different, a glass case against the back wall. Inside, lined up like soldiers, were dozens of copies of the hollow ones. Black binding, gold lettering. The book we weren't supposed to have. The book I'd told so many people was unavailable. I tried the case. Locked. But at this point, what was one more broken rule? The key from Owens's desk worked. I grabbed a copy and flipped it open. The pages were blank, every single one. I checked another book, same thing. Another. All blank. Next to the case, a filing cabinet. The drawers weren't locked. Inside, more employee records. Names I didn't recognize. People who must have worked here before Miss Turner. Every folder had the same contents. A copy of the rules, incident reports about the hollow ones, and one final note about someone disappearing. The last drawer had a sticky note stuck to it. Do not hire a replacement. I checked my watch. 10 minutes until closing. I needed to get back upstairs, lock up, pretend everything was normal. But normal had left the building when Owens disappeared. I took one last look around the basement, the empty books, the glass case, Miss Turner's logbook, the filing cabinet full of missing people. Then, something scraped across the floor upstairs. I froze. The library was supposed to be empty. I had checked every aisle before coming down here. Another sound, footsteps. I grabbed Miss Turner's folder and quietly shut the filing cabinet. The footsteps moved across the main floor directly above me. The basement door was still open at the top of the stairs. If someone looked down, the footsteps stopped. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The emergency lights buzzed softly. The footsteps started again, moving toward the stairs. A shadow stretched across the basement doorway. I clutched Miss Turner's folder to my chest, staring at the sliver of light at the top of the stairs. The shadow grew longer. Someone was coming down. I looked around frantically. There had to be somewhere to hide. Then I saw it. A second door, half hidden behind a shelf. I hadn't noticed it before. The footsteps hit the first step. I bolted for the door, twisting the handle. Inside, a utility closet, barely big enough to stand in. Second step. I squeezed inside, pulling the door shut as quietly as I could. Through the narrow crack, I could see a slice of the storage room. Third step. Fourth, the footsteps reached the bottom. Heavy shoes stepped into my view, moving between the shelves. They stopped at the glass case. A hand reached out, brushing against one of the books. The sleeve was familiar. A sweater vest I'd seen every day for weeks. Owen's. He opened the case, took out one of the blank books, then turned toward the filing cabinet. I must have made a sound, a breath, a shift in weight. His head snapped toward my hiding spot. "I know you're here." But the voice was wrong. Higher, scratchier, not Owen's at all. I didn't move. "The rules exist for a reason," that wrong voice said. "You should have followed them." The footsteps moved closer. "We all learn eventually." The door handle started to turn. I lunged out, shoving past him. The folder slipped from my hands, papers scattering across the floor. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. Behind me, those wrong footsteps followed. At the top, I slammed the basement door shut and locked it. My hands trembled as I held the key. Something hit the other side. Once, twice. Then silence. I ran to the front desk, grabbed my keys and phone. As I reached the main doors, I glanced back. The basement door was open. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. The library sat quiet behind me, its windows dark, except for one. Owen's office, where his half-empty coffee mug still waited for him to return. At home, I pulled out my phone to call the police. Then I stopped. What would I even say? That I broke into the basement and found a bunch of blank books? That something wearing Owens' sweater vest had chased me? That people disappeared here and no one remembered them? I looked at the rules, still folded in my pocket. I should have followed them. I spent the night in my car, parked 3 blocks from the library. The basement key sat on my dashboard, catching the streetlights each time a car passed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that thing wearing Owens' sweater vest, heard that wrong voice coming from his mouth. I tried calling everyone I knew who had been to the library recently. Kate, my friend who had checked out books last week, answered on the 4th ring. "The library? I haven't been there in months." "You were there Tuesday. We talked about your research paper." "Sarah, are you feeling okay?" I hung up. The library opened at 8. I sat in my car across the street, watching people come and go. Like everything was normal. Like the basement didn't exist. Like Owens had never existed. At 9, I made myself walk inside. An employee file sat on the front desk. Not mine. I picked it up with shaking hands. The name on the tab wasn't familiar. Rebecca Walsh. The temp agency's logo was stamped on top, just like mine had been. Inside, a copy of the rules, a set of keys, and new employee paperwork, waiting to be filled out. I called the agency. Still disconnected. Town hall was next. "Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell from the library." "I'm sorry," the clerk interrupted. "We don't have an employee by that name." My stomach dropped. "I've worked here for weeks. Check your records. Our system shows no Sarah Mitchell employed at any town facility." Then who had been working at the library? Who's been getting paid? Ma'am, I'm not showing any recent personnel changes at the library. Would you like me to transfer you to HR? I hung up. My desk looked wrong. The personal things I'd brought, a photo, a coffee mug, a small plant, were gone. The drawers were empty, except for a fresh copy of the rules. I checked my email. Account disabled. Swiped my library ID. Access denied. The staff room wouldn't open. I ran to Owens's office. His coffee mug, gone. His desk, clean. Like no one had ever sat there. Miss Turner's folder wasn't in the basement filing cabinet anymore. The employee records, gone. The glass case that had been full of blank books, empty. Even my car wasn't in the employee lot anymore. Just rows of unfamiliar vehicles, like I had never worked here at all. The front doors swung open. A young woman stepped inside, looking uncertain. She carried a folder with the temp agency's logo. She walked straight to the front desk, my desk, setting down her things. Rebecca Walsh, right on schedule. "Excuse me?" she said, noticing me. "I'm looking for someone to help me. I'm supposed to start work today." I stared at her. Young, nervous, probably desperate for a job, just like I had been. "They gave you the rules?" I asked. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. Same courier font. Same 3 rules. "The person who interviewed me said they were important, but it seems pretty simple." She smiled. "I mean, how hard can it be to follow 3 rules?" I thought about Owens, about Miss Turner, about the names in that filing cabinet, about how easy it had all seemed at first. "Follow the rules," I said. "Don't ask questions, don't look for answers, just follow the rules." Exactly. She hesitated, frowning. "Are you okay? Should I call someone?" I walked out of the library. No one stopped me. No one even seemed to see me. Outside, the morning crowd bustled past, off to work, to school, to normal lives. No one gave the library a second glance. No one wondered where the missing people had gone. I checked my phone. No photos, no texts, no history. Through the library windows, I saw Rebecca at the front desk. Someone was already approaching her. A man in a suit, probably asking about the hollow ones. She'd tell him it was unavailable. She'd find the Titleist books, take them to the East Wing. She'd hear the warnings, ignore them. Just like I had. Just like Miss Turner had. Just like Owens had. I turned away from the library, away from the rules, away from Rebecca Walsh, who didn't know she'd just started a job she'd never leave. The rules were simple. Just 3 things to remember. But nobody ever survived following them.